Okay, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate some other behaviors by EIGRP. We're going to show how EIGRP auto-summarizes by default, and one of the things that it does when it does that is it installs summary routes to null zero interfaces, which can cause problems on the network. So we're going to demonstrate EIGRP's auto-summarization, and then we're going to turn that off and show you the difference. Also, we're going to show you how EIGRP or EIGRP does equal cost load balancing by default. It's capable of doing unequal cost load balancing if it's configured, but by default it does equal cost load balancing. I'm going to talk about that. We're going to look at successor and feasible successors. We're also going to demonstrate some bandwidth based metrics by changing the bandwidth on the links. And in order to do this, we need to expand the network even further. So I grabbed out another generic router. This is the first generic router right here that I dragged out here, and then these are two generic switches that I dragged out right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these up, and the network that we're going to use between these two, let's just do that really quickly. We'll grab a crossover cable since it's router to router. We'll use the first available Ethernet here, and then the first available Ethernet here. Okay, and what we're going to do is this network in between these two routers, we're going to use network 12, which I created. You can see I created some more networks here. We're going to use network 12, which is the 192.168.8.0 network /24. I'm going to configure those interfaces off screen, pause the video, and then come back. Okay, I configured IP addresses on these two interfaces here. This one over here is 192.168.8.1, and this one right here is 192.168.8.2. And so now let's hook up the other router's interfaces to these two switches. So for this one, router to switch, I'm going to use a straight through cable since it's router to switch, and I'll use the next available Ethernet, fast Ethernet 1/0, and I'll go into the first available here, right? And now for this one though, for this connection, there's another Ethernet interface available, but it's actually a fiber optic interface. So for this, I'm going to need to grab a fiber optic cable, this orange one, and I'll hook that into fast Ethernet 4.0. See how the graphic is different? That's for fiber optic. And I'll go over here and put that into the fiber optic one here, which is 4.1. So now I have those hooked up, and what I want to do is I've got this network 8, 9, 10, and 11, and I've created this so we can demonstrate the auto-summarization problems that can happen with EIGRP. So I created 4 subnets. I created a 7.0 subnet /26, and then a 7.64 subnet /26, 7.128, and 7.192. So each one of these subnets has 64 hosts, 62 usable. The network numbers are 0, 64, 128, and 192. And what I'm going to do is I'll use the 128 subnet and the 192 subnet for these two networks. I'll put 128 over here and 192 over here. So this interface will be the first available host, which will be 129, and this one will be 193. And I'll configure those interfaces right now when I pause the video, and then I'll come back really quickly and they should be up. Okay, so I configured these interfaces. This is 129, this is 193. I wrote here the starting address for this 7 network was 7.0/24, and I subnetted it into 4 subnets. So we're all set here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Options, Preferences, and I'm actually going to turn off the device labels to make a little more space here on the graphic board. And I'm going to drag network 6 up here, so we know that this is network 5, this is network 4, this is network 6, and then I can put the other networks here. This one over here was network 2, this one here is network 3, and then if we just copy this, copy and paste, this one right here is now network 11, and it has